Muslims for Trump, baby.
We as Muslims stand with President Trump because he promises peace. He promises peace, not war. The bloodshed has to stop all over the world. And I think this man can make that happen.
Just get it straight. What's happening in the Middle East is not defense, it's desperation. Donald Trump and the radical extremists in Israel and in this country are fanning the flames of war, not to protect Israel or Americans, but to protect themselves and further their insane agenda of control, to distract from indictments, failures, and a crumbling grip on power. And they have always been willing to use war to do it. It's illegal, it's immoral, and it's happening right now. Launching a military offensive without congressional approval is a violation of U.S. law and international law. But more than that, it is a violation of every moral value we claim to hold as a nation. All of us should know by now, Donald Trump is the master of lies and deception. I believe the decision to attack Iran has already been made, and that soon, very soon, we're going to see yet another manufactured crisis right here in the USA. And it is designed to lend legal authority to the criminal actions of one man.
Hello, my beautiful people. America is boiling with outrage. The same people who once chanted Trump 2024 are now raising their voices in anger and disbelief. Why? Because the man who called himself a lover of peace is now launching military strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, an action many are calling unconstitutional. They say this isn't America's war, it's Israel's war, and the betrayal stings deep. Today, we break down the growing backlash and ask, has Trump broken the biggest promise to keep America out of war? Let's get to see their reactions. Then we come back with a complete analysis about this topic, all right? Let's dive into it.
Make no mistake, this is political arson. And if we let it escalate, your sons and daughters will be required to fight a war none of us asked for. This administration will not hesitate to reintroduce the draft, because that's just what authoritarian regimes do when they run out of willing bodies to sacrifice. This time, it won't be just Gen Z. It will be Gen Alpha. Children born into climate crisis, economic precarity, and political corruption. Will we sit idly by and allow Donald Trump to hand our children a future soaked in blood, ruled by violence and built on lies? And it doesn't stop there. Escalation in the Middle East ensures total collapse in the region. Refugee crises, retaliatory attacks, and global economic disruption. The entire world will pay the price for one man's obsession with dominance. Millions of innocent lives are at risk in the Middle East. But know this, so are the lives and futures of our own children, those who will inherit whatever is left when this is all over. There is nothing patriotic about preemptive war. There is nothing lawful about unilateral aggression. And there is nothing American about killing innocents to save a presidency. This is not patriotism. This is not leadership. This is power at any cost. Speak now, act now, because if we stay silent, all of us will pay the price. Trump's war is not for peace. It is not for justice. It is for power, and it must be stopped. So, right this very second, pick up the phone and flood the switchboards in the halls of power. Raise your voice. Pressure your representatives and your senators. Demand restraint, oversight, and accountability. Peace isn't weakness. War without cause is.
Trump continues to alienate our allies. We're fighting a war at home. We're fighting a war with the immigrants. We're in a worldwide trade war thanks to him. And now he has brought us into and escalated a war that we do not belong in. How does this make us safer? We should be focusing on fixing our own damn problems. Healthcare, immigration, natural disasters, the insurance issue that nobody can buy insurance in this country. Instead of spending trillions of dollars fighting other people's wars. And people say, oh, but Iran is threatening us. Yeah, so does North Korea and Russia on the reg. Why do we not drop bombs on them? Because they have nuclear weapons. So what is the lesson that Iran is going to take away from this attack? It's not going to deter them. It's going to reinforce their resolve to have nuclear weapons to protect themselves. How does this make us safer? Here we are back to Iraq. Trump has now knowingly attacked a country that did not have nuclear weapons, but whose besties are Russia, China, Pakistan, North Korea, all of whom have nuclear weapons, and most of whom also have their own lunatics in charge who are just looking for any excuse to attack the United States, the infidels. So how does this make us safer? Trump duped his followers into thinking he was a peacemaker. He's not a peacemaker, he's a peace.
I have one question. What about those eggs? Y'all remember that? What about the cost of eggs in the United States? What about the cost of gas? What about the cost of life itself in this nation? Donald Trump said that if Kamala Harris became president, we would be at war within 6 months. Homeboy, you did it in 5. Donald Trump said that on day 1, as a matter of fact, before he even became president, he said the war between Russia and Ukraine would be at an end. The war is still raging. And now, we just bombed 3 nuclear facilities in Iran. When the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, came out in March to members of Congress and said, Iran is nowhere near a nuclear weapon. Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, has been saying for over 30 years, Iran is making a nuclear weapon. And there has yet to be an iota of evidence to prove that. An iota. This is no different than George Bush's whole campaign on Iraq having a nuclear weapon, weapons of mass destruction. And turns out the whole thing was a lie. And now, our service members in the Middle East are at risk because we're getting involved in foreign wars, which Donald Trump said he would not do. This was Israel's fight, and it should have been left to Israel. I just say again, what about those eggs? Where did that go? There was all this talk about Kamala Harris starting a war. What is this? We're supposed to be cutting government spending. Now we're dropping bombs that are worth $18 million each. We're almost $40 trillion in debt. Going back to the Middle East, where I thought a lesson was learned. And a hard-fought lesson. This is utter madness.
There's so much to unpack about Trump starting a war with Iran, but I want to look at the MAGA aspect of it, and not the MAGA aspect that's the cult, who now did a 180 overnight and is suddenly pro-war, because if the cult leader says the sky's in the ground, the sky's in the ground. I want to look at the MAGA side like Dave Smith, who are opposed to the war, who are now like, oh, I admit I was wrong. And I think that is so commendable and admirable for all of us whenever we're wrong to admit it. But what I want to ask Dave Smith or any MAGA is, okay, what were you wrong about? And what do you think of the people who are right? Might we be right about everything else about Donald Trump? Because what is it you got wrong? Because here's what I see. I see you saying you don't want more wars in the Middle East or forever wars. But you voted for the Republican Party, who in 1953 overthrew a democracy in Iran with the CIA to install a dictator. Resentment to that dictator led to the Iranian Revolution and the current regime. Then a Republican president illegally armed that regime, this regime, with missiles so he could make money to overthrow a democracy in Nicaragua. Then Bush 1 started a war in the Middle East. Bush 2 started a war in the Middle East that went catastrophically wrong and was based on lies about weapons of mass destruction. And a 20-year war in Afghanistan he also started. It is the Republican Party every single time that is actively, meaning not just a proxy war, meaning not somebody else's war that we have an interest in, but using American military interest and might to foment war. It is the Republican Party every time, and you say you don't want it, and then you vote for the Republican Party. I'm sorry, but if that is not the definition of so stupid I can't comprehend it, what is? Please, Dave, tell me. If that's not dumb, what's dumb?
The United States is officially at war with Iran. Here's what you need to know from someone who lived through the Iraq War. First of all, no matter what they say, remember that they are using the exact same lies to justify this war with Iran that they used to justify the war with Iraq. Namely, they are lying and saying that Iran either has weapons of mass destruction or has the ability to manufacture those weapons of mass destruction. But the real reason for this war is that both the United States and the nation of Israel have wanted to topple Iran's government for years so they can replace it with something that's more favorable to the West. Israel's pushing really hard for this war to happen right now as soon as possible because at the moment, Iran is the only thing that is threatening Israel's ability to continue their genocide of the Palestinian and Lebanese people. Both major political parties are going to start manufacturing the message that being against this war is anti-American, and if you do not support America going to war in Iran, you are anti-American at best and a terrorist sympathizer at worst. It's the exact playbook they used to shut down criticism of the Iraq War until it was no longer possible to shut down criticism of the Iraq War. At the same time, because a war with Iran would support the military-industrial complex, you are going to see manufactured messages on all news channels supporting this war and likewise criticizing anyone who is against it as anti-American. Following that, movies and TV are about to get a lot more pro-war and a lot more pro-military. They're going to go out of their way to try and make the military look cool. They're going to try and make joining the military look cool. Do not fall for it. They want you to die for an oil company. They want you to die for a weapons company. They want you to die for Israel. And finally, do not let them distract you from the fact that Donald Trump started this war because he was humiliated at his military parade, so he wants to feel strong again. The only strength Donald Trump understands is force.
Kamala Harris warned us about Trump and Iran. Watch how detailed and specific she is in her warning.
He took unilateral action to withdraw us from the Iran nuclear deal. Some people liked it, some people didn't. Some people thought it should be stronger than it was, but it was very well negotiated and people were complying with it. And he pulls us out of it based on unilateral action, frankly, from my perspective, born out of his fragile ego. And everything that we have seen happen since was predictable to one extent or another. Iran poses a real threat to the United States based on its nuclear capabilities. And the negotiation of the JCPOA and that Iran nuclear deal was a smart way to put a cap on that in terms of escalating the threat. And now we look, and then apparently he's tweeting out, this bravado about, lock and loaded. What does that mean? Okay, and also...
Well, it's an implicit military threat that
yes,
the U.S. is going to be... We're going to use U.S. force.
Yes, it is. And again, listen, as far as I'm concerned, this president is motivated by his personal insecurities more than he is our national security. And so what we're looking at is, again, a threat that might be taken seriously. And I would dare to say that that threat was issued without serious consultation with our allies, with our military leaders, with our diplomatic leaders. What are our alternatives? Let's also be clear, if this president is thinking about putting us in a position where we're in a war with Iran, the consequences will be absolutely unacceptable and tragic in terms of the young men and women who are American soldiers who would be sent and deployed into something that was completely avoidable.
People are falling for the same propaganda that made it possible to invade Iraq, that made it possible to destroy the lives of millions of people, to take the lives of countless people, all in the name of, securing freedom, weapons of mass destruction that don't really exist. And the thing is, they are realizing that they are falling for this, but they don't care whatsoever. I am 23 years old. Even before I was born, every few years, Benjamin Malachowski would go on TV and warn about weapons of mass destruction in Iran. I believe somebody even made like a compilation of every single year he did it. And every time it would be the same thing. If we don't attack Iran, they will have weapons of mass destruction in 2 weeks. And that was like the 90s. And then a few years later, if we don't, do anything about Iran, they're 6 weeks away from having nuclear weapons. Fast forward to another 10 years later, if we don't target Iran, they will have weapons of mass destruction in a year. And I can assure you, this man will do the exact same thing in another 15 years. If by that point he was not actually successful with his goal of attacking and targeting Iran and creating a full-on invasion and war that also involves the US. And then after countless people pass away, you destroy an entire region. You're just gonna be like, you know what? There were actually no weapons of mass destruction. Once again, oopsie, our bad. Do not forget that one of the biggest supporters of the Iraq invasion was Benjamin. Countless videos of him talking about how he wants the US to invade and how that is the best thing they could do. And they're doing it all under the guise of wanting to free Iran, free the women. Are the women free now? Are they free now that you have airstrike them again and again? Are they free now that you have put them 6 feet under? If you would actually want to liberate Iran from its regime, you would not do so by targeting its civilians again and again and again. But when it comes to Izzy and the US, we have already learned that freedom is the last thing they care about. No matter if it's in the Middle East or in their own country. It's their wallets and the businesses that they run that they care about. And they must be really happy with a lot of you guys because you're playing right into their hands.
What we are witnessing is a massive shift in public opinion. Many Americans who once supported Trump feel deceived. They remember how he warned that Kamala Harris will drag the country into war. Yet here we are, just months into his return, and bombs are falling. The American people are waking up to the realization that foreign interests are shaping their foreign policy, and once again, it's the everyday citizen who pays the price. This isn't just about Iran. It's about trust. It's about broken promises. It's about a war the people never asked for. The frustration's real, and the message is clear. Americans want peace, not endless wars fought for reasons that have nothing to do with their own safety or future. So, what do you think? Has Trump betrayed his anti-war promise, or is this just another chapter in a much bigger geopolitical game? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more truth and real talk right here.